Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Good Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Before we start, I have a news item. Basically, the latest edition of the Whisky newsletter is out and about. It's been published. It's been emailed out to the Whisky mailing list, so if you're obviously on that mailing list, you should have received it by now. If not, you can log on to our Facebook page where you'll find a link to it. Also, it's on our blog page on gauntleywine.com. But if you haven't seen the actual copy and would like a copy in PDF format, just contact me through the website or send us an email to ron@gauntleywine.com and I'll quite happily email you a copy. So lots of interesting things in the newsletter, and hopefully you'll enjoy reading it. Certainly the Balblair Distillery has enjoyed reading it as I voted the 1965 my distillery bottling of the year. I got a very nice email from the sales rep, and they'll be circulating it to all the big wigs. So that's kind of nice to know, isn't it? I suppose there'll be a couple of distilleries that probably are going to cut me off their Christmas card list because of a couple of reviews, but well, that's the way it goes, isn't it? Anyway. Enough waffling. Let's talk about some whiskies we'll be tasting this evening now. Right. Okay. Quite excited about this. In actual fact, this is a up-to-date look at sort of three expressions from the Speyside distillery. In actual fact, I've only just recently had these samples sent to me, so I'd just like to say thank you to the distillery and the current owners of House Distillers for sending me the samples. So much so that I haven't actually had a chance to type up my tasting notes, so they're not actually anywhere at the moment, but like I said, this is quite hopefully an exciting tasting. So anyway, before we start, as per usual, a little bit of waffle about the distillery itself. As you know, Speyburn, like I said, is currently owned by House Distillers that purchased it in 1991. The distillery itself was founded in 1897, went through a couple of hands, was owned by DCL at one point, like practically every distillery in Scotland was. It's had its moments of being closed. Its moments of being in full production, but currently it's so it says in here it's the number 5 brand, would you believe, in the USA, which is amazing when you consider that it's not really that well known over here. In actual fact, I mean, the Speyburn 10-year-old, which we'll be tasting in a minute, is one of the very few 10-year-old whiskies that you can still get for under 30 quid. Amazing, isn't it? As a distillery, I mean, I've always loved the 10-year-old Speyburn. I mean, I remember tasting it a few years ago, and it had a sort of a nice kind of herbally, sort of honeyed kind of character. Sort of it kind of, I guess, in the sort of style maybe of Glengarry. Often thought of it reminded me a little bit of Highland Park, but obviously without the peat and the sherry influence. But again, it had that kind of quite sort of herbally, heathery kind of character. So it's going to be interesting to taste this. I haven't tasted the 10-year-old Speyburn for quite a while. This little sample here, this is the brand new bottling of the 25-year-old. Now, some of you may remember that I raved about the previous bottling of 25-year-old Speyburn when I was tasting whiskey for the World Whisky Awards, and absolutely loved it. I mean, the 25-year-old was just a superb whiskey, it has to be said. So it's set the bench pretty high. So has the second edition lived up to the hype and the the quality of the first one? We shall see. And this is a first. This hasn't even been released yet. This won't be released until next year. And what it is, it's a single cask, cask number 3413 of sherry cask Speyburn, distilled in 1975. So it's going to be around about sort of 37 years old. This will only be available to the clan Speyburn, and only available through the Speyburn website. It will not be on general release. So when we come round to tasting that, if it whets your appetite and you think, yeah, I've got to have a bottle of that, well then log on to the Speyburn website and become a clan member. So I think this is going to be a really interesting tasting. So I'll shut up and get on with it then, shall I?
Where there are no angels, this is where all hope is dead.
Right, okay, so let's start with the 10-year-old Speyburn. Bottled at 40%, which is quite unusual these days when you think about it. It's most distilleries are now bottling 43 and 46. I guess that's part of the reason why it isn't as expensive as some 10-year-olds. The less duty on 40% alcohol than there is on obviously 43 and 46% alcohol. Like I said, always thought this was a really nice malt. So let's see if it's still the same then, shall we? Lovely nose. A lot crisper than I remember it. Not quite so hugely honey, but it's certainly got some lovely herbal honey, some sort of crisp, almost granity notes. Again, I think sort of comparisons with say Glengarry is very apt. It's got some dense fruit, some apricot, a little bit of sort of fleshy, sort of slightly banana-y kind of character. A little bit of spice coming through, but it's got this lovely herbal character. Really nice, really quite juicy. And like I was saying, for less than 30 quid, you can do a lot worse than the palate then does. Palate's a lot fuller than the nose kind of lets on. Richer, denser, a little bit more oak character, some toffee, and then you get this sort of quite granity, minerally, slightly citrus mid palate, which kind of interwoven with this kind of lovely herbal honey character, and the herbal and this honey and a little bit of oak sort of certainly comes back on the end, dragging a little bit of spice with it. That's nice. It's not the most complex of whiskies in the world, but it does what it does really, really nicely. So, like I said, something that's less than 30 quid, I don't think you can go too far wrong with that one, personally speaking. Right, okay, let's have a look at the 25-year-old then, shall we? Very keen to look at this. Like I said, the previous bottling of the 25 was just absolutely stunning. So it's got a lot to live up to, and should we see if it indeed does then? That's a nice nose. That's really nice. A lot more oak character, creamy, quite sort of full and broad, with that lovely kind of mature, sort of sawdusty kind of oak character. Lovely balance though. I mean, it's still got this lovely sort of herbal honey character, which was present on the 10-year-old, but it's certainly a lot more deep and a lot more complex. Some yeah, the oak is big, but it's not overwhelming. Again, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think the balance is just absolutely spot on. Slightly creamy, but it's just that herbal honey was just absolutely wonderful, really nice. Oh. Not quite so effusive on the palate, it has to be said. A lot more minerality, a bit of citrus, even a little bit of salt, and it's kind of not clamped down on the fruitiness. I mean, it's certainly got, you know, a lovely body, a lot of fleshy apricot, a little bit of banana, some soft spice. But you can certainly tell it's got more oak, which kind of closes in on it. It's not quite as sawdusty as I remember the first bottling, and certainly doesn't taste as mature. It's, I guess, that sort of granite and that citrus note certainly gives the palate a lift, and certainly it doesn't taste 25 years old. It's really quite youthful in relative terms, but that is absolutely lovely. I mean, that really is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it is mouth-filling, it is big, it's got sort of, you know, weight, depth, like I said, maybe not quite up to the standards of the very first bottling, but I think that just sort of set the bar rather high. But that's not to take anything away from this particular bottling. It's still absolutely superb. That's nice. Right, and on to the 1975, the sherry cask. Very obviously sherried, as you can see from the colour. Like I said, it's bottled at 55.9, or will be. Cask number 3413. So I'm really excited about tasting this. I mean, it's not often one gets to taste exclusives before they're even released, and then, you know, exclusives that are not even destined for the major markets. So one imagines all of these bottles will get snapped up. So let's see what the nose gives us. Big, pungent. That's a sherry monster. Lots and lots of spices, coffee, dark chocolate, treacle, dried fruits, raisins, sultanas, little bit of orange peel. It's, I mean, if you love your sherry whiskey, I mean, the cleanliness, absolutely spot on. No blemishes, not even a whiff of sulphur. Slightly perfumed now, a little bit of a violetty note. I mean, you know, the complexity of this cask is absolutely phenomenal. It is really spot on. I mean, yeah, okay, you're not getting a great deal of distillery character. The kind of like herbaceousness and the honey character has certainly been swamped by the sherry cask, but it is a lovely sherry cask, it has to be said. You know, again, it's not as, it doesn't smell old. You know, it's got a real vibrancy to it. Yeah, some lovely aromas. Gorgeous. Lovely. Really, really nice. Out then. Wow, that's juicy. What a finish. My God, that is unbelievably good. I mean, started off with quite a lot of wood notes, a lot of coffee, a lot of dark chocolate, dried fruit, prunes, dried apricots, and all the while you could feel the wood tannins and the alcohol starting to build, and you're sort of thinking, "Whoa, is this going to carry on? You know, is this going to sort of hammer the finish?" Not at all. Absolutely not at all. Suddenly you just get this wave of juicy sherry fruit, a lovely aftertaste. You know, some lovely sort of slightly bitter spices. You know, just like if you've been, you know, tasting or having a piece of, you know, 85 or 90% sort of dark cocoa, you get that sort of slightly sort of bitter but sort of soft finish. Exactly the same. This is absolutely stunningly good. Really, no need for water at all, but you know, we'll put a little drop of water in and see what happens, shall we? Dustier, spicier. Now it's starting to show its age. I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just now you can smell the maturity, that sort of dusty spice tannin, a little bit more violety as well, a bit of perfume now, and I'm actually getting quite a bit of honey. So obviously putting a little drop of water is kind of like, you know, push the sherry slightly backwards, but it's still there, you know. It's very soft, very subtle, or relatively subtle as a first fill Oloroso, which I imagine this probably is, can be, shall we say. Oh, it's luscious. Little bit of a sugar coating now, a little bit of granulated sugar. Oh, that is gorgeous. Like I said, if you love your sherry casks. Oh, that's mouth-filling. Really soft now, juicy. Like I said, lovely dried fruits. Great spicy finish. But the spices are now softened, they're sort of quite crumbly. A little bit of cinnamon maybe, like coriander maybe. Not quite so dry, not quite so bitter now. It's adding a little drop of water has certainly brought out the sort of natural sugars in it. That's absolutely mouth-filling. Yeah, that's stunningly good. And that's from somebody that's not a huge fan of sherry cask whiskies, as you well know. But you know, that has got some serious complexity, and maybe because I'm looking for it, I can sense a bit of the distillery character. Certainly on the nose, when I put a bit of water in it, it did seem to sort of start to show a little bit more honey character. Maybe that's because I was looking for it, but you know, it's stunning. Really, really good. Right, okay, shall we sum this up then? Speyburn, yeah, an undiscovered gem maybe. Certainly the 10-year-old is just absolutely brilliant value for money. You know, if you want a really nice, unpeated, you know, honeyed, juicy wheat malt, then 10-year-old is just an absolute bargain. Really amazingly good. I like it. I think that's just a great bottling. Speyburn, the 25. Well, okay, maybe not quite up to the very first bottling, but like I said, I think the first bottling just set the bar really, really high. I mean, you just wouldn't expect. I mean, I know that sounds a bit derogatory that you wouldn't expect Speyburn to be good, but it's just not a particularly well-known whiskey, and most people, like I said, will have only ever sort of encountered the 10-year-old, but the 25 is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's not going to be cheap. I mean, I don't know the cost of it. Guess it's going to retail somewhere in the mid to high 90s, maybe even push the ton. But fantastic whiskey. I love it. I think that is just absolutely gorgeous, and can't recommend that enough. And the Speyburn 75. Well, as far as sherry cask whiskies goes, really good. I mean, can't knock it whatsoever. A lot of complexity from the wood. Maybe there's a bit of distillery character there. Maybe it's because I was looking for it. Who knows? But all I can say is, fantastically clean. No sulphur, no blemishes whatsoever. Whoever picked that cask has absolutely just picked an absolute winner. So, like I said, will not be available, on the general market. It will be distillery only. Sign yourself up to the Clan Speyburn if you want to get hold of a bottle of this. Like I said, it won't be until, well, I guess the early part of next year. So there you go, an exclusive from the Good Dram Show. About time, actually, I suppose, really, when you think about it. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the show, and like I said, I hope you'll check out our blog, or check out Facebook and have a read of the latest newsletter. I've put quite a lot of hard work into it. Tortured my liver for you lot, as they say, and thoroughly enjoyed it. So, as there's no whiskey left in my glass, just like always it seems to be, I will bid you a good evening and good dram.
The flames are rising, it feels as she's dying. She has damned herself forever with her own hands. The ecstasy took her, temptation it broke her.